Spoken communication in the workplace. Although we have an increasing dependency on technology when communicating, there are limitations. Without the voice cues that help us when listening to someone speak and the nonverbal cues that accompany face-to-face exchanges, a message can be easily misinterpreted. Verbal communication also offers opportunities to connect with coworkers or customers and build rapport. Ask spontaneous questions or ensure that the message has been accurately understood because the recipient can offer immediate feedback in the way of rephrasing what was shared. Or save time because the message and any responses or questions are shared in real time, unlike emails that might sit in someone's inbox for longer periods of time. Spoken words, such as when someone is being praised for doing a good job, or when someone is receiving performance feedback, can feel more genuine than similar messages sent by email. Finally, some workers simply retain information better when it is shared directly with them. Regardless of why you are communicating, the most critical aspect of communication is ensuring that you are clear in what you share with others and what is shared with you. At the end of this module, you will be able to describe active listening, describe good practices associated with active listening, and identify examples of class projects or team meetings, class briefings or presentations, and exchanges between you and your coworkers that demonstrate strong communication skills. Spoken communication and active listening. Active listening is the art of listening to more than just the words that someone says. It requires that you pay attention to the tone and volume of the conversation, the choice of words used, the flow of the conversation, such as whether there is an easy back and forth of ideas or there are awkward pauses, and the nonverbal cues, including body language and behaviors that occur during a conversation, such as a listener who is also looking at his or her phone. Regardless of whether you are exchanging information with a coworker or supervisor, or sharing as part of a presentation or briefing, it is important that you are intentional in what you say and do to ensure your meaning is clear and that you apply the concepts of active listening to what you say as well as what you hear. When it is your turn to speak, speak loud enough for people to hear you, but no louder than is necessary for the circumstances. Choose your words carefully, avoiding unprofessional slang and words that show prejudice or are offensive. Work to eliminate filler words such as like or Slight pauses while you gather your thoughts are not a problem. Like, and are distracting. Take care that the tone of your voice matches what you are saying. Think about a time that you asked someone how they were feeling and they responded, "I'm fine," even though you could see they were not fine. Were the words convincing, or were you more persuaded by the tone they used and their body language? Give people a chance to comment on what you are saying instead of dominating a discussion. If you have a lengthy explanation or many points to make, pause periodically so that your listeners can ask questions or clarify what they hear you saying. And invite listeners to affirm for you that what you said makes sense and verify that they understood what you meant to say. When you are listening, pay attention to the speaker's tone and the words they are choosing to use. Wait for the person speaking to pause before you ask clarifying questions. Do not attempt to anticipate what they will say next. Active listening requires you to withhold judgment until a person is finished making their point and to avoid interjecting your thoughts while someone is speaking. Avoid mentally criticizing what the speaker is saying while they are speaking, which will impact your effectiveness as a listener. Don't jump to conclusions about what the speaker is about to say, and don't rush a speaker by attempting to finish his or her sentences for them. You cannot be sure as to where a person is going with their thoughts, and you run the risk of not understanding the points the speaker is making. At the very least, interrupting a speaker is rude. Nod or use short phrases such as "yes," "I understand," or "I see" to indicate you are following what he or she is saying. When the speaker is through or has paused to verify everyone understands what he or she has said, active listening requires that you provide feedback to the speaker to ensure you have understood the message. Rephrase what you heard the speaker say using your own words. You can begin with, "You were saying," or "I understand you to mean." In this way, you can be sure that you understand what the speaker wants. Remember, when you are speaking to someone via Zoom, Skype, or a similar online program, that is even more important for you to speak clearly and at a pace that is easily understood. Bear in mind that what you say is only part of what you are communicating in face-to-face conversations. How you say things matters a great deal. Listeners will make decisions about your confidence, your attitude toward them, and the topic of conversation, as well as your knowledge and your meaning based on your tone, how quickly you speak, how often you pause, your volume, and how clearly you speak. Whether you are speaking or listening, your tone, facial expressions, eye contact, hand gestures, and changes in posture will all contribute to a listener's interpretation of what you mean. Use nonverbal cues when you are speaking that are natural and comfortable for you, yet are intentional. Using your hands to emphasize points, smiling, and nodding are all nonverbal cues that can serve as complements to your spoken word. Avoid common distracting mannerisms such as finger pointing, fidgeting, scratching, tapping, playing with your hair, wringing your hands, and twisting a ring. Make good eye contact to communicate that you are interested in what someone is saying. Ideally, you will look directly into a person's eyes for at least 2 to 3 seconds before looking away or moving to speak to another person. Glancing at someone for shorter periods suggests nervousness, insecurity, or evasion. You also want to avoid staring too long at a person, so you will need to strike a balance. For most of us, this is how we naturally speak when we are comfortable and interested in what we are discussing. When you are leading a meeting, speaking to a group, or interacting one-on-one, pay close attention to the other person's body language and tone of voice. A person's nonverbal cues can tell you when they have a question, want to say something, agree or disagree, need a break, require more explanation, or have an emotional response. By responding appropriately to others' cues, you not only convey confidence in yourself, but you show a high level of empathy, sensitivity, and care for them, which builds trust. Leaning slightly forward when you are sitting and standing up straight and tall can convey confidence in addition to showing you are interested in what is being discussed. Conversely, bad posture signals to others that you lack confidence, do not care, or have low energy levels. Finally, active listening requires that you recognize that people and cultures have different ways of communicating. While it is impossible for you to become 100% culturally fluent, you can begin by not making assumptions based on a single nonverbal cue. For example, in some cultures, it is considered disrespectful to make eye contact with someone senior to you. In the United States, a failure to make eye contact is considered an indication of dishonesty. You could easily misinterpret a speaker or listener's meaning if you only use your cultural norms to interpret nonverbal cues. Take a moment to describe a time that you spoke one-on-one with a professor, supervisor, or someone that worked for you. What was the point of the conversation? What verbal and nonverbal cues can you remember from that conversation that either helped or hindered you in communicating your meaning to the other person? Next, think about a time that you and another person misinterpreted each other in a conversation. Perhaps you gave someone instructions that they failed to complete because they interpreted your meaning differently than you intended. Perhaps you were the listener that misinterpreted someone's meaning. What active listening techniques that you have learned could you have used to make sure that the communication exchange was successful?